You've been told the gospel is free until the invoice arrives with a pastor's name on it. A movement born in fishermen's boats now sails luxury budgets, NDAs, and golden retirements. I'm Veritas Vox, and I'm taking a side. The megachurch forgiveness machine is not mercy. It's management. Look at the shockwave around Gateway Church. The founder steps down after abuse allegations surface. Indictments follow months later. And even as court dates loom, headlines argue over millions in retirement money. Meanwhile, the flock watches the lights dim and the lawyers speak. Tell me, where in Acts did the apostles haggle severance while the saints wept? When restoration looks like arbitration, the altar has been rented out. This episode isn't about one man, it's about a model. A model that monetizes charisma, mortgages trust, and calls it grace. First, the soft language. A board addresses recent events. A founder steps aside. A congregation is urged to pray and trust the process. Then the harder nouns arrive. Allegations of child abuse from decades past. A resignation. Later, indictments on multiple felony counts in Oklahoma. A civil suit alleging a cover-up, and a courtroom calendar etched in stone for the years to come. The church posts statements, ex-elders face motions, attendance drops, campuses trim services. The center does not hold, because the center was never the cross. It was the stage. Public records and coverage trace that arc. Official statements to the congregation in mid-2024, a grand jury indictment announced in March 2025, a civil defamation suit filed June 2025 with trial set in Dallas County, separate court fights over a retirement package, and fresh hearings through July. Each update is a chisel against the illusion that fame sanctifies. If grace is real, it doesn't need press releases. If truth is real, it doesn't fear courtrooms. The shock wave isn't one headline, it's the revelation that a system built for visibility cannot survive transparency. Here is the grotesque poetry of celebrity faith. Even as prosecutors file charges in one state, another court hears claims over a promised stream of money. 7 figures floated in filings and reports, with talk of lifetime benefits for pastor and spouse. The church counters, violations void the deal. The pastor's side seeks Christian arbitration. The church resists, citing the public interest. Judges grant 30-day windows to pick an arbitrator, while the criminal case ticks on. Whether the final number is millions or a line in a contract, the spectacle has already preached its own sermon. The lambs leave with questions. The shepherds linger with calculators. Public reporting details the figures allegedly sought, the church's refusal, and the legal positioning. Requests over $1 million, long-tail retirement contributions, and a push for religious arbitration. The congregation's institution counters with policy clauses and reputational harm. A judge nudges both toward agreement, even as another court slots a civil trial for 2026. If you still call this restoration, you have mistaken reparations to a brand for repentance before God. This is not about guilt or innocence in a single case. It is about whether a pulpit ever deserved a parachute. When a machine runs on image, the first parts to burn are the brakes. Former elders are named in filings. Some seek removal from civil suits, saying they acted without malice. The church publicizes changes in its elder board. Outside outlets report on who knew what when. Attorneys argue over defamation, failure to report, and emotional tolls. A judge sets a civil trial date. This is how the self-policing myth collapses, not in a revival meeting, but in docket numbers. Meanwhile, the sanctuary feels the tremor. Members who gave their 20s to the brand now read affidavits in their 30s. Volunteers stare at the stage and remember private warnings dismissed as disunity. The official line insists a process is underway. The unofficial memory asks why warnings were needed in the first place. If accountability were the norm, whistleblowers wouldn't need courage. They'd need appointment times. Instead, they get lawyers. The headlines love numbers, campuses, seats, reach. But the cost that doesn't trend is the tremor in a child's faith, or the fatigue in a deacon's eyes. Reports note, services trimmed across campuses, a recalibration blamed on attendance, and the season we are in. That phrase, soothing antiseptic, covers a wound that bleeds trust. You can replace a Saturday service. You cannot replace the sound a sanctuary makes when people stop singing. Financial triage follows moral triage. Layoffs ripple. Vision nights sound like investor calls. Donation foothills resemble cliffs. Some will say this is persecution. No, it's physics. When a ministry makes charisma the load-bearing wall, a single crack brings drywall down across pews. The church will survive. The church always does. But the brand has taught a generation to look for Jesus in a camera crane. When the crane leaves, they can't find him in the silence. Drop your questions in the comments. You leave a like and subscribe, and I'll give you an answer. Real forgiveness returns a sinner to the table. Fake forgiveness rushes him back to the microphone. Real forgiveness is embodied in obscurity. Fake forgiveness is performed in content arcs. We baptize reinstatement as grace because we measured sanctification in followers and minutes watched. But the cross is not a platform. It is a death. Death to image, to narrative control, to curated contrition. If a fallen leader cannot accept invisibility, he does not want forgiveness. He wants applause that doesn't sting. And no, this isn't cancel culture. This is church culture at last. The early church did not enthrone men because they could fill an amphitheater. It trusted men who could survive a prayer closet. Modern celebrity faith reverses the sacrament. Platform first, penitence later, perhaps. The result is predictable. A forgiveness industry that restores income streams, while victims memorize hearing dates. Call it restoration if you like. I call it a costume change. Scandals do not end movements, they spawn spin-offs. In the wake of collapse, new ministries sprout nearby with gentler names and fresher logos. Family members distance, rebrand, plant, sometimes explicitly independent, sometimes no formal relationship, always within driving distance of the wound. The map fills with familiar DNA and unfamiliar signage. Is that resilience or refusal to listen? Coverage has already tracked the family tree, a son launching a new church in the same city, another branch renaming a campus into a local identity. The language is clean. No formal ties, new season, local heart. The reality is messy. Sheep hear the same accents and wonder which shepherds learned which lessons. If the franchise system outlives the flagship, the problem was never a bad apple. It was the orchard's irrigation, fame, speed, insulation from rebuke. Call it wisdom to start over if you want. I call it proof that the brand believes it cannot die, only multiply. I will not tell you how to draft policies or balance budgets. I am not your consultant. I'm your conscience, hoarse from shouting over the subwoofers. Let the lights go out. Let the stage be a tomb for the myth that talent is fruit, that brand is blessing, that forgiveness means a quick return to the nearest camera. If Christ is risen, he does not need our celebrities. And if the church is real, it can afford to be quiet long enough to tell the truth. To the faithful who stayed, you are not naive for loving your church. You are brave for expecting it to love truth. To the wounded who left, your exit is not betrayal. It is a testimony that holiness outlives hype. To those still writing checks for restoration, understand that mercy has no invoice and repentance has no marketing plan. If a movement built on money and microphones must die so that a church of bread and water can live, then let it die. A dark stage is not defeat. It is the first honest prayer this room has prayed in years.